And if it does well and it becomes Tuesdays with Homie, then maybe I will be able to keep my doors open. So thanks. I think there's a common vision, I think, that joins us all together in this disparate group and disparate speakers tonight. The prophet Habakkuk writes, "The vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint, and if it delays, wait for it." The vision that I speak about in the book is about the deepest longing, I think, of human beings, which is for kinship, a sense that there is no us and them, there's just us. That Mother Teresa, I think, in fact, diagnosed the world's ills correctly when she suggested that the problem is that we've forgotten that we belong to each other. So how do we stand against forgetting that we belong? To that end, I think we seek to imagine a circle of compassion, and then we imagine nobody standing outside that circle. And to that end, I think what we're all called to do is to stand maybe at the edges, at the margins, with the poor and the powerless and the voiceless, with those whose burdens are more than they can bear, with those whose dignity has been denied. And with any luck, maybe we find ourselves standing with the easily despised and the readily left out, and with the demonized, so that the demonizing will stop, and with the disposable, so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away. 25 years ago, I was a pastor of the poorest parish in the city of Los Angeles, and I buried my first kid killed because of gang violence. We had 8 gangs there in those days. I buried my 168th young person killed 4 months ago, a young man named Keith. I run the largest gang intervention program in the country, so I know a lot of gang members. Sadly, I'm asked to sort of perform this task. But in those days, we did a lot of things, and we started a lot of things, and now we have this huge headquarters near Union Station in Chinatown in LA, if you're familiar with where that is. But for 25 years, the homies have taught me a great deal of things, homies and the homegirls. 12,000 of them walk through our doors every year to get services, and I have about 300 who work for me at the moment. But lately, you know, especially when I'm on the road, they've been teaching me how to text. So yeah, I don't know what we did before this. It sure beats the heck out of actually talking to people. But, so LOL and OMG and BTW, you know, and there's a new one, OH10, which apparently stands for Oh Hell No. I'm using that one quite a bit lately. But I went to homies and we're driving to Palm Springs. I'm going to speak at a school, and they're going to have me do it. And older guys, late 20s, been to prison, tattooed, in recovery, Manuel and Poncho, and Manuel's in the front seat. And all of a sudden, we meet at 9 to make this 2-hour drive to Palm Springs, and all of a sudden I hear this little, you know, and Manuel reads it and he starts to chuckle, and I go, "What is it?" He goes, "It's dumb." He says, "It's from Snoopy back in the office," and we had just, you know, left Snoopy. Snoopy was there, and before we left, I said, "Well, what's it say?" He goes, "Hey dog, it's me, Snoops. Yeah, they got my ass locked up in county jail. They're charging me with being the ugliest vato in America. You have to come down right now, show them they got the wrong guy." Well, I nearly swerved into oncoming traffic, and then I realized that Manuel and Snoopy are enemies. They're from rival gangs. They work together in the clock-in room for my 300 workers. They used to shoot bullets at each other. Now they shoot text messages.
Wow.
And the word for that, it seems to me, is kinship. And how do we together seek a kind of compassion that can stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it? The book is packed with stories from the last 25 years working with gang members, but specifically at Homeboy Industries. We were born in the housing projects, the largest grouping of public housing west of the Mississippi. And now we've grown into this huge thing. 12,000 gang members walk through our doors. They talk to job developers to try to find gainful employment, felony-friendly employers somewhere. We have free tattoo removal. We have 2 laser machines, 12 volunteer doctors, and we have 4,000 laser treatments a year. There's no place on the planet that removes more tattoos. It all began with a guy named Frank who showed up 2 days out of Corcoran State Prison. he shows up in my office, pardon my language, but his forehead, it said, "Fuck the world," tattooed on his forehead from here to here to here. You're like a billboard.
Wow.
And he says, "You know what, I'm having a hard time finding a job." Maybe we could put our heads together on this. So tattoo removal was born, and now we have a waiting list of 1,000.
Wow.
And we have five businesses: Homeboy Bakery, Homeboy Maintenance, Homeboy Homegirl Merchandise, Homeboy Silkscreen, and Homegirl Cafe, where women with records, young ladies in rival gangs, waitresses with attitude will gladly take your order, and we cater. About 3 months ago, Diane Keaton showed up for lunch, Oscar-winning actress and movie star, and she had come there with a regular guy who's there every week. And Diane Keaton's waitress this afternoon is this homegirl named Glinda. And Glinda, you know, been there, done that, tattooed, parolee, prison, gang member. She doesn't know who Diane Keaton is. And so she's taking her order, and Diane Keaton says, "Well, what do you recommend?" And so Glinda says, "Well, I like these 3 things, you know," and then Diane Keaton picks one, and then something dawns on Glinda. She looks at Diane Keaton and says, "You look so familiar to me. I feel like I know you. I feel like, you know, we've met somewhere." And Diane Keaton sort of deflects it, you know, sort of humbly, and says, "Oh, gosh, I suppose I have one of those faces that people think they've seen before." And then Glenda goes, "No, now I know. We were locked up together." I suspect Diane Keaton must have been having a bad hair day or something to be mistaken for Glenda Selly. What I think we're all called to do, and especially at Homeboy Industries, is to choose to become what the late child psychologist Alice Miller calls enlightened witnesses. People who, through kindness and tenderness and a focused, attentive love, return people to themselves. And in the process, you get returned to yourself. I love that story. People always ask me about enemies working side by side with each other. And it's difficult, you know, when a homie comes in and wants desperately to work and to leave behind gang life. And I said, "Well, I'll have an opening for you in the bakery, but you're going to have to work with X, Y, and Z." And I rattle off the names of enemies people used to shoot at. And then they always will say, "I'll work with them, but I won't talk to them," which used to bother me in my early days, until you discover, of course, that it's impossible for human beings to demonize people they know. So there's one guy named Youngster, everybody called him Youngster, from a gang called Meadow Flats, and he was ready to work. So I walked him into our Homeboy Silkscreen factory, which is our biggest business, 2,500 customers from all over the country. And I'm introducing him to everybody that works there, and he's shaking hands, he's looking them in the eyes, even his enemies he's shaking hands. I think this is great. Until Youngster gets to a guy named Puppet from Clarence Street Locals, and the two of them don't shake hands. And they mumble something, and they stare at their feet. And of course I know they're enemies, but he just finished shaking hands with other enemies. I discovered later that this is an animosity that's so deep, and the hurt mutually inflicted is something that neither of them think can get beyond. I sense that at the moment. I look at them, I go, you know, if you guys can't hang working together, just let me know. I got a bunch of people who would love this job. And they say nothing. About 3 months later, Puppet was returning home from having purchased a gallon of milk for his mom at a corner store. He decides to take a shortcut, and it's an alley. And suddenly he's surrounded by 10 members of a rival enemy gang, and they beat him badly, and he falls to the ground. And while he's lying there, they will not stop kicking his head until he's lifeless. Somebody finds him and takes him to White Memorial Hospital, where they declare him brain dead. But they keep him connected to machines for 48 hours so they can get a flat read for 2 days. This allows people to gather, his family. I was at St. Louis University giving a talk. I flew home. I've seen a lot of horrible things in my life, but nothing to compared to the sight of this young man with his head swollen many times its size. It was just horrifying. At the end of the